Song Refugee makes me think of Andre Dillard, a refugee. I still cannot get over the idea that Philadelphia is getting a compensatory pick back for that guy.
I love this song.
It is a great song. You could do a lot worse than Tom Petty on this Tuesday. Welcome back to the show. Lucas is going to tell us here in just a second the piece of Brian Callahan's resume that no one is talking about, but first some calls.
Can't wait to hear your reaction, by the way.
737-1045. Is it going to be a positive reaction or a negative? I've been overwhelmingly positive today.
You have.
I don't think we could say that about any show that I've done in the last 3 years. I don't think I've had a negative moment yet, other than yelling at you for something.
Still time.
Okay. Keep an eye on the clock. Meanwhile, James is in Bellevue. Hey, James.
Hey there. And not trying to get negative, but, it being a transition period, looking back at the Vrabel era and then kind of coming into the Callahan area at a higher level, what changes can the front office make in terms of management and, doing that C-word stuff to, really sustain success? And, 6 years from now, I just don't want to be in the same position we are. Thank you.
Oh, I mean, James, you're going to be in the same position that's football. But, I can't promise you that it's going to be great for the rest of your life, that you're going to stumble into your next Bill Belichick, Tom Brady, Pat Mahomes, Andy Reid, 6 years. Brother, if you make it 6 more years without having to do something like this, you're one of the best organizations in sports. That's just the nature of how this stuff works. So I can't tell you with any great confidence that this is your solution for a decade plus of football. No, nobody in the NFL really gets that kind of run unless you land on the greatest quarterback of all time, Brady, or what seems like he might push Brady for the greatest quarterback of all time in Mahomes. Beyond that, you're trying to figure it out as you go. What can the front office do different? Well, that's a great question, because this is going to be more driven by them this season than it was at any point last season. And when I say them, I mean Rand, I mean Chad Brinker, I mean Anthony Robinson, I mean the people that work under them, I mean the staff changes that they're going to make under them, and how Brian Callahan fits within that new kind of, I don't want to say new role, but how he better fits in that role than did Vrabel. Vrabel did things a certain type of way. He was the established figure here. They deferred to him in ways that may not have been the best decision, and it ultimately didn't work out. But I can't promise you that you're not going to have to go through this again in 6 years. That's the NFL successfully builds this sport for parity. Just not like they're trying to sandbag you once every 6 years, or we were just talking to Blaine yesterday about getting a new laptop. Blaine and Mickey yesterday when we were changing shifts. And Blaine, I think Blaine's had his MacBook for a decade. And Mickey said he had his one previously until one day an update just finally did it in. The update was too much for the old laptop to handle. He had to get a new laptop. Not saying that the NFL designs this thing to where you have to get a new head coach every once in a while. But 6 years is a great run. Mike Vrabel just had a great run. Not a lot of people get a contract with their NFL organizations, and that window is getting shorter and shorter. All right, tell me what's the thing we're not talking about the most with Callahan's resume?
Well, his quarterback resume is as impressive as any, right? And we're going to talk about it ad nauseum over the course of the next few weeks, I imagine. Peyton Manning, Joe Burrow, Matt Stafford, Derek Carr, what he did with Jake Browning, the reviews from these players about Brian Callahan, huge feather in his cap. What about Tim Tebow?
Oh, wait, which Tim Tebow? Denver Tim Tebow?
2011. Denver, 6-game win streak, playoff win, Tim Tebow.
Oh, my God, that might be his best work.
Brian Callahan was an offensive quality control analyst with the Denver Broncos. John Fox, head coach, defensive-minded guy. Mike McCoy was the offensive coordinator, and Adam Gase was the QB coach. So there were a lot of voices there, right? Not like Callahan was the play caller calling the shots for Tebow, but Brian Callahan was instrumental in Tebow's success in bringing concepts that worked for Tebow at Florida to the pros that nobody else was using in the NFL. Tim Tebow rattled off a 6-game win streak where his QBR was over 100 on 3 different occasions. And at what point in Tebow's career did you look at him as a guy that could win you a playoff game throwing for 300 yards?
Never.
At no point.
Never.
Except for the time that he did it.
Belichick, that's when we should have known that Belichick may be a little more smoke and mirrors than he actually was when they got Tebow, and it was just like, oh, God.
Dan Pompei of The Athletic wrote a fantastic article in August of 2022. I'd encourage any Titans fan to go back and read it. It's called What Makes Bengals Offensive Coordinator Brian Callahan a Rising NFL Coach. He goes through, and you get quotes from every quarterback he's ever worked with on why Callahan was a good coach for them at that point in their career. And the way that he would pull concepts and things that those QBs are comfortable with and see what works for them. Not so much for Peyton Manning, where for Peyton, he was more of just a deep dive guy. You know, he was doing a lot of homework for Peyton and bringing him things when it came to game planning and upcoming defenses. But when it came to Tim Tebow and Joe Burrow, the young quarterbacks that Callahan worked with, Stafford was a vet by the time Callahan got to Detroit. Carr was a vet by the time Callahan got to Oakland. But the way he pulled concepts they were already comfortable with, and I fall on this excerpt from the Pompei article about Joe Burrow. As the Bengals prepared to play the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game in the 2021 season, Burrow told Callahan he preferred to have Jamar Chase run a fade on the backside of a red zone concept instead of the route that Callahan initially intended Chase to run. Callahan listened to his quarterback. He changed the route. Late in the third quarter of that 27-24 Bengals victory in Kansas City, Chase scored on a 2-yard reception from Burrow on the fade Burrow had suggested with his old college teammate Jamar Chase from LSU. The things that he did with Tim Tebow as well, again, pulling things that Tebow did at Florida that nobody else in the NFL was doing, is a huge feather in his cap as part of that quarterback resume. He helped Tim Tebow throw for 300 yards in a playoff game and win.
I still remember watching that Steelers-Broncos playoff game. Do you ever do one of those, like, cabin trips with a bunch of your friends? And this is not like a bottle service question. But in college, you ever do one of those big cabin trips with your buddies? Go to Sevierville or Gatlinburg or something like that?
Oh, yeah.
We did one of those rental cabins, a bunch of us, my freshman year. And there was only like 3 channels that the TV at the cabin was getting, and one of them was the Pittsburgh-Denver playoff game. That was wild. I remember watching that finish and just being shocked when he hit Demaryius Thomas.
The Demaryius Thomas, rest in peace, catch and run. So it is interesting to go through and hear from every quarterback he's ever worked with and the way he's had to adapt with the different personality of Peyton Manning to Matt Stafford, right? And then Matt Stafford to Derek Carr. Like, these are completely polar opposite personalities in the way that they play, and then to Joe Burrow and now with Will Levis, which makes me wonder, as we rattle through offensive coordinator candidates for the Titans, do we need to be talking about Liam Cohen?
Yes.
Who is at Kentucky?
Sure. I think it's going to be Thomas Brown, the former Panthers offensive coordinator. He may, they may explore the Cohen situation. I haven't heard anything to that effect yet. Callahan may have people from his background or from other stops that he may be interested in as offensive coordinators, but right now it feels like Thomas Brown's the favorite. But I'm definitely open to having the Cohen conversation. I'm shocked that more teams don't do that. You know, in the same way, like, I loved when they drafted Waddle for Tua. Stuff like that, like Burrow and Jamar. Now, maybe you're not going to get that to fall in line as easily as those two organizations did just because of the places that they were drafting over the course of several years. But I love that continuity in some form or fashion from what these guys are doing in college to get them in the best position to succeed and then take another step with them as they get further and further away from their college careers. But to have something that you know you can lean on right out the gate, whether that's a player that you played with in college or a coach that you used to have that you know you vibe with, I'm always surprised when NFL organizations don't explore that possibility more.
Brian Callahan explores that possibility a lot. He wants to adapt to his players, not the other way around. What's Wan'Dale Robinson's contract status?
He's probably got 2 years left on a rookie deal, I would think. Why, future Titan Wan'Dale Robinson? You thinking about it? Okay. Wide receiver's going to be a need here perpetually, it feels like.
Barryon Brown will be draft eligible after this coming season. Was one of Levis's favorite targets was Levis's favorite target in his last season at Kentucky when Brown was a true freshman. Robinson's deal runs through 2025, so yeah, 2 more years.
Duck Falling on YouTube says, this is a 2 Americas moment. Y'all went to cabins. We went to Atlanta to check out Magic City, 2 Americas. Well, I recommended Magic City to Lucas on his last Atlanta trip. You did not go, it's my understanding.
It was against my will. I wanted to try the wings.
I have been to Magic City for the Lou Williams special. I have also Uber Eats the Lou Williams special from Magic City. The last time the Titans and Falcons played a preseason game. I'm very familiar with Magic City's fare. Phrasing. More of your phone calls coming up next. The final hour. Brian Callahan plans to call the plays. What does that mean? Are you excited about it? We'll talk about it next.